One last dance. USC and UCLA, the Coliseum this Saturday, the last Pac 12 game as USC and UCLA both hit the Big Ten next year. Could this also be a last dance for Chip Kelly? Stick around and let's find out as we have another episode of Trojans Talk on Tap.
Cardinal and gold. Listen close, one thing's for sure. We know that they know we going blow for blow. The best out the west, known throughout the town. Show up to show out, that's what it's all about. Score so much, tired travelers shutting it down. Make plays all day, yes, we chase to the ground. The next man up is the next Heisman. Only bleed USC, yes, we've been built to win. Catch roses while we ball all across the map. Too strong, fight on, it's Trojan Talk on Tap.
Welcome to this edition of Trojans Talk on Tap. It's our USC UCLA preview show. Glad to have on a guest many of you may recognize on the Voice of College Football. We have Search or Chris or TBM, the many voices of a very big UCLA fan. Chris, welcome. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So this is it, man. One last time in the Pac-12. It's SC UCLA rivalry week. I don't know about you, but I think a little bit of the luster's off. But this is always going to be a battle. What are your thoughts as we head towards Saturday?
Yeah, you're right. Like the luster conversation, right? I think. I feel like there's a lot more juice, so to speak, like for the game last year, right? Like especially on the UCLA side of things, we had just had that disappointing loss to Arizona, but we were, I want to say 8-2 at the time. With like hopes of still making a run, doing some great things. This year, a little bit different. Not only is there less juice, like an excitement wins wise, but the news kind of trickling out of Westwood about the idea that Chip Kelly is probably not going to be the coach of the UCLA Bruins next year. I think a lot of the conversations in UCLA world are a little bit more focused on the excitement of a coaching search or who a new coach might be, rather than the game itself. I think as we get closer to Saturday, the old hate, so to speak, or the rivalry blood will get a little warmer, and people will care more about that. But the situation itself is kind of funny. I do kind of want to, and we can break down the game a little bit, obviously, but I do want to imagine a world. I don't know that I necessarily think it's going to happen. We can get into more detail about that. But I want to imagine a world where Chip Kelly somehow still wins out this year and finishes 8-4, while USC finishes 7-5, and then we end up firing a coach that had a better record than Lincoln Riley, because I think it would be hilarious. I don't think that's how things are going to go down, but that's just like a funny world I want to live in. So I hope that's what happens. But yeah, the game itself, I can do the short version and then we can get into it, or what you think. But I understand that a lot of SC fans, especially while Grinch was still your defensive coordinator, like the harp on the defense, and you've had some issues of having people, like the pig farmer at Utah, or other offenses that have struggled throughout the year, still doing well enough against you. And you're coming off a hard Washington game, a hard Oregon game. it all kind of is kind of just floating around on a downward trend, so to speak, probably like fan wise emotionally, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that no matter how bad you think your defense is, our offense probably worse. So even if your defense is bad, I just don't think I don't think we're going to be able to keep up, because on the other side of the ball, there's been a lot of talk about how good our defense is, and I think it is really good. But UCLA, against the two best, kind of most balanced offenses we've faced in Oregon State and Arizona, both didn't really have that much trouble moving the ball on us. And I think you're better versions of that, or at least as good as Oregon State, obviously. And you have Caleb Williams, who maybe or maybe doesn't win the Heisman again this year, but is, just as good as, one of the best college quarterbacks that have been around in a long time. I don't think we're going to be able to stop you enough. I don't think you have to score that much to win, but I think you do anyway. And if you put something up in the 30s, I think it's going to be really hard for UCLA to keep up. I don't think you have to score 50 points to win this game like you would against an Oregon or a Washington or that kind of game. I don't know how much of you saw of the Arizona State UCLA game, but
I didn't see much. I tell us a little about what happened in that ASU game. I think that's what you said.
It was one of the funniest games I've ever watched, because, especially in the first half, you had UCLA and Colin Schley with, because Garbers and Moore at quarterback are both out to injury. Part of that being, and our offensive line has not been terrific this year, which, I think it's fair to think it would have taken a step back anytime you lose 3 guys to the NFL. But part of Chip's problem, or I think what a lot of the Chip naysayers would say, right, is that he didn't recruit at a high enough level, and we haven't sufficiently replaced the people that we lost on the offensive line. So we ran triple option with Colin Schley. Actually had some success. He's pretty dynamic running the ball, but we're basically running, triple option some plays. And having a lot of trouble, especially in the red zone, converting scores when we get down there. Got stuffed a lot on 4th and 1, not really winning, key plays at the line of scrimmage. And the Arizona State side of things was hilarious, because I think they had maybe 5 scholarship offensive linemen, so they came out in swinging gate. I don't know if you've seen any tape from our game, but it's basically 5 offensive linemen are all the way down by the sideline. They got the center in the middle with a couple of people playing where an up back would, and then a couple of receivers at the top. So the way Arizona State kind of decided to negate our great pass rush, which is by far the strength of our defense, is our front 7 and our ability to rush the passer. Well, they just said, we're going to move our entire offensive line away from the quarterback. And so our defensive linemen weren't really there anymore to rush the passer, because they were all down, matching up in formation, 20 or 30 yards away from the ball. But yeah, great job by Dillingham to do whatever he could. They scored 17 on us, and they had a running back and a tight end playing quarterback as often as they had their normal quarterback playing quarterback. Yeah, right.
Dillingham is crafty. He started calling plays the week that USC played Arizona State, and you could tell he did his homework. He had a lot of trick plays, gadget plays, but he was going to do whatever he could to get his team in position to get yardage and to score. And it sounds like he did something similar against UCLA.
Yeah, it's not the game that we're talking about, obviously, but it reminds me of when Norvell was the offensive coordinator under, I just had his name off the top of my head, at Arizona State, before he went on to start head coaching at, Memphis and now Florida State and whatnot. Is is when he was at Arizona State, he had every kind of bag of tricks or scheme or any weird thing he thought he could do to try to give his team some help in winning a game. And it kind of felt like that. But all that aside, more to like the general point in UCLA world is that loss is like pretty unacceptable, right? If you look at you look at what UCLA fans thought we would be preseason, looking at the schedule, which was not very difficult. Not having to play Oregon and Washington this year, easy out of conference. You look at the schedule preseason and it looks like, 8-4 if things are bad, 9-3 probably is what we would think we would want to be, and 10-2 would be really, really good, right? We haven't won 10 games since Mora, and a couple of those I think might have even involved bowl games. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, no, I mean, 10 wins anytime, I don't care who you're playing, is still a pretty good year. But the loss to Arizona State at home was kind of just I think the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of people.
Oh, and let's be honest. USC hasn't met its expectations. I predicted USC would go 11-1, get a loss coming to Oregon, and we're 1-4 in the last 5 games. The only victory up at Cal by 1 point, by the skin of our teeth. So obviously we fired Alex Grinch. There's rumors about Chip Kelly. This game is for pride and nothing more than that. And the game was a sellout a few weeks ago, but locally it rained today in Southern California. You're in New York on the East Coast. It's supposed to rain Saturday. We've had the 10 freeway caught on fire. And so there's all these excuses for SC and UCLA Bruins not to show up for this game, the fans, because this game is about not what each of our fan bases had thought. I mean, USC, returning Heisman Trophy winner, Caleb Williams, this was thought to be beat UCLA, get a week off, and go to the Pac-12 championship. That's not happening. So for each of our teams, you're sitting at 6-4, we're 7-4. You have to finish out versus Cal next week at the Rose Bowl. So you still have a chance to go 8-4. USC has a chance to go 8-4. Not spectacular. Who knows where our teams are going to end up? El Paso, Vegas, wherever. Maybe even the LA Bowl. What an embarrassment. But we're playing for pride, bragging rights, whatever that is. We're playing for a win, basically. But you hit upon it. You were saying that the defense, the front seven, is the strength of your team, that you don't think that you'll be able to keep up scoring with USC. Honestly, your defense is outstanding. It's been outstanding this year. But then again, you're going against an easier schedule. USC this year has got against a more difficult schedule. The last part of the schedule was backloaded. No excuses. The coaching staff had ample time to prepare for this in the offseason. We just finished a run of Notre Dame, Utah, Cal, Washington, and Oregon. And actually, I'm kind of pleased the way that USC played against Oregon. I didn't anticipate them to come out and fight as much as they did. I'm sure that UCLA is going to come out and fight. But I think that the strength of your team is the defense. And that's what I kind of want to get into next is I think that's where UCLA is going to find success, is pressuring Caleb Williams, creating turnovers, creating short fields for your offense. Because let's face it, this game, it's about emotions. It's about turnovers, creating momentum. And just because UCLA hasn't had a great offense this year doesn't mean they can't find success in the Coliseum on Saturday. What are your thoughts on what UCLA needs to do to be successful, Chris?
To be successful in this game, I think it needs to be a ugly game. Not to bring up like bad memories for all your viewers, but it's got to be a game like 13-9 where, I was a student at the time, so me and my best friend came out of our, it was a win or lose, we still booze kind of game going into it back then. And I remember, just kind of gradually sobering up through the course of the game, waiting for the dam to break, and and then looking at my friend in the fourth quarter, being like, "Oh, wait, we might actually do this," and then doing it, and then having having people try to rush the field and then get pepper sprayed by Rose Bowl security, which I think speaks kind of to some of the issues at UCLA football culture wise. When you can't rush the field and you get actively like arrested and pepper sprayed for doing it at your own home stadium. But no, I think it has to be an ugly game. I think it has to be a lot like the game Oregon State had against you guys last year in Corvallis, where they didn't end up pulling off the win, but they ran the ball well. They ate up clock. They got after Caleb. Caleb struggled in that game. I think it has to be something similar to that. I just don't. I don't think that we can. I'll be surprised if we stop you, only because, again, you're right to say that our defense has been great, and it's exceeded by far any expectation I possibly could have had going into the year. It's kind of wait and see, like with the new defensive coordinator, what would happen. But they've done a great job, especially when you compare it to the defense of last year. It's much improved. It's totally exceeded expectations. But I just kind of look at that Oregon State game and that Arizona State. So not Arizona State, but the Arizona game and the Oregon State game against offenses that could do things on both sides of the ball. And on both sides of the ball, sorry, running and passing. They have like a bit of balance on offense. And in those two games, we struggled to stop people. And maybe we can hang around for a little bit, but I think that Caleb, especially with our secondary, the few times we don't get home, I think we're going to pay for it. I would love to be wrong. Obviously, I'll be watching the game, rooting for UCLA. I just don't have a good feeling about this one on the Bruins side of things. But to your point, yeah, to be successful, we got to make it ugly, and we have to find a way to get after Caleb and not let him run around and do his magic with how great he is.
Well, one of the things that you have going for you on your defense is you're number one in rush defense, and so giving up 70 yards a game, and so that's one of the ways to get after Caleb Williams. And you saw that with Washington, Utah, and Oregon, is make USC one-dimensional. And how much is USC going to dedicate to running the ball? Because once USC is one-dimensional, strong defensive lines and front sevens have a way of peppering our offensive line and getting into the backfield. And once you get Caleb scrambling, then you have opportunities for mistakes. And I think that's what UCLA is going to need to do, is generate some type of turnovers. But you're going against Caleb Williams, and as you mentioned, he makes up for a lot of deficiencies, and it depends on what the game plan is going to be for USC. And you did mention there's the secondary as being an opportunity, and but it comes down to USC's offensive line. They've had trouble blocking, which has been difficult for wide receivers to get open, and with enough time to run their routes without Caleb having to scramble and hurry his throws. So that's going to be a challenge that we'll have to watch all day. And tell me about your special teams. But before we get into that, thank you everybody for joining our tailgate preview here at LBC Trojan Channel. Appreciate you. Thanks for those that are in the chat. If you have any questions, I think one of the questions we can pull up real quick is from our good friend Jackson Johnson. He kind of wants to know, this is for you, Chris, is what do you know about the reports about Chip Kelly being gone at the conclusion of 2023? You kind of touched about it at the beginning. What do you think those reports are real? And do you think that if UCLA loses, do you think UCLA will pull the trigger on Chip Kelly?
Yeah, I think they've already talked to Chip. I think Chip knows. I think everyone knows. I think they just haven't done it, and they're not going to until after this game. I don't even know if the result of this game matters or the ultimate conclusion of whether he's here or not next year. Like, I think he's gone regardless. I think if we win this week, he might coach the Cal game. And I think if we lose this week, he will. I was going to actually get to that question here in a second. But to Jackson's question, yeah, no, I think it's very real. There were rumblings as early as like Sunday after we lost to Arizona State. And there have been people that have wanted, it's funny because I think there were a number of people, I think that like in 2019, I remember bringing up like Willie Fritz on UCLA message boards before like Tulane got good as like, maybe we could hire this guy. And that was back in 2019. And there was an idea of like, oh, maybe, that because the first 2 or 3 years, I think a lot of people don't, especially nationally, don't understand that the first 2 or 3 years of the Chip Kelly era were absolutely dreadful and are like the worst period of football in UCLA program history, which I think has some to do with the attendance and but no, I think there was an idea back in 2019 that some UCLA fans were ready to move on from Chip Kelly, and then COVID happened, right? And I think COVID kind of like moved everything a year or two, and then after that happened, then we had 5th year DTR and had our best year, and
Sure.
and like well. Okay, well, like let's see. Yeah, you're not gonna kick the guy out after 9 wins last year, even though there were some really disappointing results in there, right? Like the Arizona game last year, our bowl game, but yeah, no, I think for Arizona State this year, it kind of just finally. It finally came to a breaking point where I think there was even like we got a support Chip or a wait and see crowd of part of the fan base still this year. And I think after that game, it was a unanimous, except maybe 1 or 2 people here and there that think it's time to move on. So I think it's definitely happening the way that people talk about it. And that's when we've traditionally fired coaches is after the SC game. It's when we fired. I think it's when we fired Bora the last like three or 4 coaches. Like from Durrell, Neuheisel, and Mora. I think all of them had their last games against SC. I could be wrong, but I think that's correct.
Yeah. So I mean, Chip Kelly, you kind of went into it. He has been unremarkable, and I was kind of surprised as I'm going through some of the information that's coming out that his record right now is 33-33. So
and like 5-26 against teams that finished the year with a winning record.
Wow. So let's move on here. We got
so not good.
We got a question from Touchdown USC. Hey, Touchdown USC, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you. What happened to Kyle Ford? He only has 13 receptions this year, and I haven't heard anything really, any news about Kyle Ford. Has he been hurt? Is it just a function of the offense?
Yeah, he's not hurt. I think it's a function of the offense and a function of the wide receiver rotation more generally. Like UCLA fans were very excited when Kyle Ford and Sturdivant from Cal both came in as transfers, right? I was saying it was the best wide receiver room we've had since I've been a fan of UCLA. But it hasn't really turned out that way. I think it's a mix of a ton of different things. and it can lead into our next conversation, but about which I'd like to ask you about how you feel about your defense against our what I think is a very anemic offense. But to the question at hand, I think that there's a bunch of things that kind of go into it, right? There's one is like the offense has not been very good, and there hasn't been a quarterback that has been able to consistently move the ball through the air. We did earlier in the year, like J. Michael Sturdivant had a huge catch in Dante Moore's, one of Dante Moore's first plays, or first games, beautiful, one of the best throws of just pretty perfect in stride. And you're like, oh, all right, let's go. And it just hasn't come out that way. So part of it is not having a lot of success throwing the ball generally, whether you want to blame a quarterback or the offensive line or receivers not being able to get open. And then part of it is just, that the wide receiver rotation has been kind of weird. I think most people would say that Sturdivant's going to be an NFL guy, and he hasn't had a big season either. They're having trouble getting him the ball. Like Logan Loya is our wide receiver making most of the plays. So yeah, the short answer is we're not getting the guys we thought were going to be really good for us the ball. I don't know of anything that would make me say that it's like, oh, Kyle Ford, isn't working hard, or Kyle Ford's hurt, or Kyle Ford is like anything. I think it's just a function of getting lost a little bit on a depth chart of wide receivers of a group that I thought was very good, but even the good ones within it, not really getting the ball as much as I think they would have wanted to. I think if you ask Sturdivant about his transfer from Cal, other than the money he might be getting in NIL, I don't think that Kyle Ford or Sturdivant are probably very happy about the level of production that they've had.
Well, before we get into the defense, talking about USC defense, I think it's time for a beer, honestly. With that, at our tailgate here, hey, I'm always about upgrading your tailgate beer. I've got two that I'm going to decide about having tonight. This one is from Common Space here in SoCal. It's called Fresh Pills of LA. It's a German Pilsner. Kind of we're battling for LA, but that's too corny because it's not really a game. It's a pillow fight to see who can go 8-4 possibly. So with all this talk about Chip Kelly, and last week was Alex Grinch, this one is called Tragedy at the Sock Puppet Theater. This is what is happening. This is what this game has come down to. This is a West Coast IPA. It's this one is from Mason Ale Works in San Diego. I've never tried this beer, and it's also called Paperback Brewing out of LA, 7.1%, I believe it is. But again, Tragedy at the Sock Puppet Theater. That's what we've come down to, Chris. What are you having?
So I know you've already introduced your viewers before to my favorite beer, which is Maine Lunch.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that brewery. I don't have one of those on hand, unfortunately, and I had to pick something different, but a little local. I went with, and I'm sorry I'm not on camera. I give a public apology to all the viewers, but you can imagine me drinking a Run the Juice right now. It's a New England from a small little brewery that farms its own hops up in Long Island. And I've been by there once, and it's a cool little place, and it's a good beer if you get a chance to have a drink.
Cheers, man.
Cheers to that.
I'm gonna have to drink a few on Saturday for this game, but let's talk about that USC defense, because that's going to be challenging. Um, if you take a look at it, you rush yards a game. UCLA runs the ball over 200 yards a game, and USC runs it 152 yards a game. But total defense, oops, I got Oregon on there, but it's UCLA number 10. I don't know why that's on
Right.
there. And USC is 123. But UCLA's defense, rush defense is 70 yards a game. USC is giving up 182 yards a game. And so really if UCLA wants to attack USC, it's run the ball. Especially, I don't know who is going to be quarterbacking. Who, in your opinion, is going to be quarterbacking? Is it going to be Schlee? Is it going to be Moore? Is it going to be Garbers? I think Schlee is hurt, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't even know. That's what's so funny about this coaching thing, right? Is I think like in a normal week, you'd have a lot of conversation about who is the quarterback. And to answer your question, I don't know. I've been on the boards, but I haven't been paying attention to the right things. So like the thing is I don't, the bummer for Garbers is that he burned his red shirt coming back, right? And then got hurt, because if he would have transferred, he would have been able to have, like if he grad transferred somewhere, he could still have 2 years of eligibility, actually. And now he'll only have 1. There's questions about a lot of this stuff's weird, right? Because I feel like in the era of today, especially like when a coach gets let go, right, you get a free transfer, and you can go anywhere you want without having to sit out a year. So I think there's some questions about like, does Moore play? Is Dante Moore thinking about where he's going to be and he doesn't have anything here, or does he actually want to get out there again? I don't know if this is the game to do that to the kid, to be honest. I think if Garbers was healthy, I think Garbers would play. And now that I think about it, I do think that it was either him or Schlee. One of them I've heard is moving around better at practice. And I apologize that I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it will be Schlee or Garbers. But regardless of who it is, it's usually not pretty. So unless Utah has done it against other people, not just like Utah has moved the ball against other people after they move the ball against you, right? Like I understand that the USC fan is a little upset that they made the pig farmer look like Vince Young a little bit, but Utah has had success in other games scoring points, and UCLA really hasn't for a while. It's been a bad situation. So I don't know. It's like it's the opposite of like there's the famous idea of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. And I think our offense against your defense is kind of the opposite of that, right? It's like
it's going to be ugly. It's really going to be ugly. It's like we can't stop the run, but you don't have a quarterback. So sell out to stop the run. Oh yeah, let's add some rain to it. Let's just make this a mess, because that's what the game is. It's a mess. So it's like, who is going to be left standing after 60 minutes? And Ben, thanks for joining, Ben. He's got a great question. But if USC loses, how many holding calls or something would USC be away from winning? Yes, this is something that's very frustrating to hear Lincoln Riley talk about. We were in this game. We were, a holding call away or one play.
Oh, away. Did he complain about flags?
No, he did say, he said we were a holding call away. I believe that's when we lost the Washington game. I can't keep track anymore. We've had so many losses. But I believe that was the Washington game. It's like, you know what? If you had 2 or 3 stops, you win this game by 17. That's the issue. You can't stop anybody on defense. Tell the truth, Lincoln. I mean, oh gosh, it's just,
I mean, every team in the I feel like every team in the country can say similar things, right? Like, I mean, you can do the reverse of it too, right? Like Arizona, who's getting all the credit in the world right now, is like, a couple plays against Stanford, that was a point game, and like a couple plays against Colorado, which is like a 3-point game, from all of a sudden being like 5-5 and nowhere near the darling that they are right now. But the ultimate result is what matters, right? And
yeah, you're not a good
it's
team.
the same thing.
Yeah,
And it's kind of the same thing with Chip Kelly. Is we've had a bunch of seasons like that. In fact, last year was kind of like that, where we were really good, and if a couple plays against Arizona go a different way, and a couple of plays against SC go a different way, then like hell, we're actually in the conference championship game. But that's not what happened. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the like couple plays here or there thing. I think it's okay to say in a vacuum or like a short time period, but like at a certain point you are what you are, right?
yeah.
To that question, I did actually want to ask you about Caleb, not in the context of putting his jersey up, which would be cool, and it would make sense for them to do it, because I was going to ask you do you think that this is Caleb's last game in a USC uniform?
Well, let's. I'm going to answer Gixer's question. Thanks a lot, Gixer, for your question. Any chance USC will finally reveal Caleb Williams' Heisman Trophy jersey this Saturday? I'd love to see Reggie's too as a Pac-12 farewell. I have heard from a couple different sources. I've seen that they are going to be supposedly revealing 2 numbers. You would think it's Caleb's. I think that this, to answer your question, Chris, this isn't going to be his last game. I don't think he comes back to go play in the Big Ten. Absolutely not.
Oh, not even that, just like a bowl game even.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't want to speculate. But I could see I would support either decision, because he is going to be the number 1 pick, or he's going to be in the top 3, and he's going to have a lot of money that he's going to have coming his way, and he could decide he wants to play with his teammates one last time, but why? In a lower bowl game. So I wouldn't besmirch him at all. It's about his future, and if he doesn't play, then so be it. So yeah, this might be it. So you got to get out to the Coliseum. Will they do 2 numbers? Supposedly, I've had people say, well, they can't do Reggie's because he didn't get his Heisman back. Well, you know what? USC retires their numbers supposedly for just Heisman Trophy winners, but they can retire whoever's numbers they want to. And if USC believes that Reggie Bush should get his Heisman back, that's enough reason for me. Frankly, I don't care if they do Reggie's or not. It's bound to happen. But hope that answers your question, Gixer. Yeah, I think this probably most likely, I would give it a 95% chance this is Caleb's last game, and hopefully he'll show out and have an excellent game, because there's so many, as we kind of talked about, Chris, and I appreciate you coming on and drop it in the chat. What do you think are the keys are going to be to victory for the Trojans or the Bruins? Depends on who you follow. We'll get into our score predictions here, Chris, in a second. But I just think that it's going to be an ugly game. And in an ugly game, I think you have to have somebody that can control the game, and that's Caleb Williams. So he can step up at any time and get you a touchdown here, a touchdown there. I think with UCLA's lack of scoring, their lack of offense, you have 3 quarterbacks that really haven't put their stamp on the team all offensive part of the game all year long. I think Caleb can take care of this game as long as he protects the ball, he gets some time, and they don't turn the ball over. Obviously, in this game, it's going to come down to turnovers. Each team cannot afford to turn the ball over in this game because the margins are very, very thin, and that's the way I see it. But I see USC finding a way, in an ugly way, to win this game.
Yeah, so real quick on the Caleb point, like obviously the season didn't go the way that USC fan would have hoped, right? But I think you do in the moment as much as you can, right? Have to kind of like appreciate how good this kid was and soak in his last game. I mean, I know the SC has other Heisman winning quarterbacks before and other special talents before, but he's another one of them. And he did a lot of great things, and at some points masked a lot of issues with
Absolutely.
line play and other items. The kid was like very special, and I think it's good to soak in those good moments, even if everything else around it's not perfect. For like the outcome of the game, generally, I was like surprised that this was only a 6.5 point spread, because and I guess it's just looking at it from like a UCLA doomer perspective of like, we just lost to Arizona and Arizona State. How the hell are we supposed to even be close to SC? And like, I get the SC is on a little bit of a skid itself, but like if you look at who they've been playing, it's like it's Oregon and Washington and Notre Dame and Utah, right? It's a different beast. Yeah, maybe we can move the ball. Maybe we do find a way to we do get after Caleb and somehow make him make mistakes or make him hurry and have to throw the ball away a lot, and we get off the field and we play really good defense and make it an ugly game. It was a way different game, but it's a shame the chip thing doesn't work out, because I remember certain moments where I was like, oh, okay, like we might have something here. And one of them was like when we hung 62 on you guys, I think in Hilton's last year.
Yep.
And we ran the ball for like 1 billion yards. And I was like, all right, we're just gonna like shove it down people's throats. Like, this is great. Like, Chip's the man. It didn't really play out that way.
Right.
No, but if we can have a game plan, similar to that, in the sense that we have success running the ball, then that would be great. I don't know that we will, because even though we put up a lot of rushing numbers, the like yards per play aspect of it, I think the totals are maybe a little bit misleading, because we don't really have like the giant explosive plays, and we really do struggle once we get down into the red zone. So that, combined with the fact that like we have a lot of trouble even making field goals, and field goals aren't going to win this game anyway. I just have more faith in your offense to score against our good defense than I do for our bad offense to score against your bad defense. So if I had to pick a score, I would say something like, I don't know, like 35-24 SC wins, or 31-21, something like that. Maybe I'm being too hard on the offense and we do score, or I don't understand how bad you are defensively. But I just see us again. I will have plays here and there, but if I had to guess, I think we're going to have trouble ultimately keeping up against what's a very balanced and very good offense led by the Heisman Trophy winner. So that's my ultimate take on the game. I would have, of course, loved to be wrong.
So you have 35-24. Is that
sure? Let's say 30. Let's say 31-21.
31-21 SC. Yeah, this game is. I don't know how it's going to play out, because I think there's maybe turmoil in both locker rooms. The transfer portal opens up on December 4th. We have a lot of rumored players that maybe won't be back. That's kind of the nature of this era of college football, because of the expectations that weren't met at USC. We're supposed to be competing for a Pac-12 championship and a college football playoff. But I guess we've had one too many holding penalties, and we were close. We were close to controlling our own destiny. I'll tell you what, the players that have played, they have played hard. We just haven't haven't executed in those times. I don't think the coaching. I think Lincoln Riley could have coached better, given the situation of his team and knowing Alex Grinch was a defensive liability. But that didn't happen. It didn't happen, and so we have one last game of the season, thankfully, and hopefully Caleb Williams has a great game. I expect him to, because you take a look at it. I think the combination of playing at the Coliseum, his last game most likely, he's going to go out a winner. That kid's a winner, and he's the best college quarterback I've ever seen. And I think UCLA, I don't know if they're really going to fight for Chip Kelly. From what I've read, they really don't like him. A lot of the players don't like his personality and just the kind of guy that Chip is. And
it's really weird sorry to cut you off real quick. It's really weird because one of the biggest like proponents or like the plus side of Chip was supposed to be over the last like 5 or 6 years that we had the argument was, and I try to say anytime I'm bringing one of these things up, I don't necessarily even like to say what side of it I'm necessarily on. I'm sure people can figure it out sometimes, but there's an argument. The argument of like the pro Chip Kelly side was, like he's been great at UCLA. He removed like this underbelly culture wise from the end of the Jim Mora era. I think other people would argue that you didn't have to clean it out and make it as bad as it was those first few years in order to do what you wanted to do, but they let him do it. And we gave him time and we gave him 6 years. But the whole idea was there's this whole idea of like books and ball, and we're supposed to be like getting good kids. And to be fair, they haven't really got in trouble, but the whole idea was supposed to be like, oh, we have this great culture, and this great like development and whatnot. And even though we don't go out and get all of the most highly rated recruits or whatever, we're going to, just be a really disciplined, good football team that has a good group of kids that the university can be proud of, sort of thing. And yeah, we'll still win games. And it's interesting because in the last couple of weeks, you've heard more and more increasing rumors of like him losing the team or the culture really not being as great as everyone thought it was. I think even the detractors, most of them from Chip Kelly that, have been calling for him and like not liking him for multiple years, would have still said, oh, well, like, the culture is probably pretty good. Like the reports that you're talking about, it's really interesting to hear because it flies in the face of like, I believe it, but it flies in the face of like, well, the narrative that was around for the last few years about what we had going on in Westwood.
Well, that being said, collectively, I see USC winning this game, an ugly game, 38-28. So kind of close to what you're saying. I just think it's going to be close all the way through. And the team that has the fewer turnovers is going to win this game. But Chris, I appreciate you coming on, talking SC UCLA. It's not the game that you and I expected, but thankfully it's the last game of the Pac-12 for both schools. It's going to be a new horizon.
We got one more. One more important one.
Go ahead. Give me one more important one.
No, I was saying no. You said last game of the Pac-12. It's our last rivalry game.
That's the last one for UCLA and USC. Obviously, you and Cal are going to be closing out Pac-12 After Dark. And this would be so epic. You guys lose to ASU. I could see USC losing this game and then you guys losing to Cal. Because that's the way.
If it makes Cal Bowl eligible, then good for them. I know we're not here to talk about Cal, but I'll give you one quick side.
I don't want to talk about Cal.
I'm gonna give you one quick side story that I'll share on the show that we're gonna do together here in about 30 minutes or 10 minutes. But
if you could hold on to that thought, because Chris and I
we'll save it. Yeah, teaser. It's not that good. It's not worth teasing.
Thank you everybody for joining us today on our preview here on the LBC Trojan channel. Chris and I are going to be hopping off. We're going to end the show. And you can come join us on the Pac-12 Chat Show live for our regular Wednesday, 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern time slot on the Voice of College Football. Last words for this game, Chris.
Thanks for having me on. Good luck to USC. I hope you lose by 100 points, and I'll see you again in about 10 minutes.
Hey, you know what, Chris? I appreciate you, and I just have one last thing for you. Let's go, Trojans. Fight on, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.
See you.